Good day. I'm here today with Clay Eber. Clay was a director of marketing and business development at Accenture, after which he attended Seth Godin's alternative MBA. Clay is the founder and CEO of spindose.com, the world's first enterprise discovery platform. And he's also the founder of crowdfunding Hacks. Clay has helped over 50 entrepreneurs raise over 5 million and counting on popular crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Clay, thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
Absolutely, and very happy to do this with you because I've known you for a while. I've been
Yeah.
following you for many years. Had the pleasure of becoming online friends. We never had the chance to meet in person yet, but we've kept in touch a lot for a while. And I wanted to sort of start on you know it was hard for me to box you in on what you do.
Yeah.
And if you had to explain what it is that you do and the problems you solve for people, considering all the things you've done so far, what would you say? How would you define that value that you provide professionally?
Well, what I do now is I help entrepreneurs fund their dreams, and that's the most important thing. In my entire career prior to what I'm doing now, I helped big companies do marketing, do consulting, help implement huge systems, technology systems, and it was always really hard for me because it was hard for me to see the impact on the world, right? If I helped a big, huge pharmaceutical company improve the way that their computer systems handle how they price their contracts, there's no dent in the universe there. There's no interesting impact to the world for doing that. And that was my 10 years at Accenture. And then since I left and after the Seth Godin MBA program, I was using cooler skills. I was doing marketing, innovation, workshops. So it was definitely better. I was moving the needle a little bit more, but it's still working with these huge, massive companies. And then since about January 2012, doing all this crowdfunding stuff, it's been much more rewarding and much more impactful because I get to help people launch their projects and dreams into the world using crowdfunding and get the initial funding for that. So we worked with a friend of mine named Satya Twina. She's her second Kickstarter project is live right now. Her first one was to save a New York City hat factory, a millinery, and she saved 6 jobs and really saved this factory that makes really cool men's and women's hats. And now her second one is about creating a sun hat for women that allows them to, in a fashionable, affordable way, protect their head from the sun and skin cancer and the whole thing. So that's not like improving a huge company's, process by 1% or something where the impact isn't really felt. This is really helping entrepreneurs get their projects off the ground, fund their dreams, and do something that they weren't doing before, and that's extremely rewarding to me.
Right. Well, that sounds really good because you're like you said, you're finding meaning, which goes beyond maybe how much money you can
Right.
make or how much of the numbers you're tweaking, etc.
Right.
And I one thing I am very fascinated in nowadays is talking to people that have reinvented their careers because I see this as this sort of trend that we all have to start, accepting that we will have to all reinvent ourselves professionally, maybe many times throughout our lives. Because the idea that well, I'm an engineer for the next 50 years and that's my label, that's probably over. And you've done this. And what would you say were looking back and you look at when this changes started to happen, and I'm sure you still feel changes happening as you go. What are some of the challenges or struggles and problems you dealt with, and how you solve them in this journey of reinventing yourself and finding a new niche for yourself?
Yeah. So what we know is that we're in a connection economy now. We're not in an industrial economy. And when we say the word factory, people assume that you're talking about pulling a lever in Detroit and making a car. But when I worked at Accenture for 10 years, it was also a factory. It was just a factory of methodologies and spreadsheets and solutions for our clients. And the world that we live in now is one of connection. The economy we live in now is a connection economy. And like Seth Godin talks about, it's doing art, it's doing work that matters. And we're all going to become sort of entrepreneurs and freelancers. So getting used to reinventing your career, I think we're seeing a big shift right now, sort of from the factory model to the entrepreneur freelancer model. A lot of people in our world are doing that. I think our education system still teaches the factory model, and it prepares people to be factory workers. And in the generation that you and I are in this 20 or 30 years, we're going to completely change. Like when I was one of the last people to sort of graduate university and go into this factory model and have it still be the promise still be true. Like when I graduated college in 99, if you got a good degree from a good college and had decent grades, you got a pretty good factory job. And I did get a good factory job at Accenture. That's not necessarily true anymore. And the change is all relatively recent. So I think it's hard for people. You said the struggle. It's hard because our education system does not prepare people for this world. I think that's one of the things that Seth was proving with the experiment that he did with the alternative MBA is there a different model that we can deliver that is more relevant and more applicable? And so to contrast, in college, I had 12 weeks of management accounting and then 12 weeks of a different accounting course and then 12 weeks of a different accounting course. So as a finance major, I had three 12-week courses, 36 weeks of my life taking different accounting classes, even though that everyone knew, myself and them knew, that I was not going into accounting, right? Compare that or contrast that to the Seth Godin program, where we spent one day on financial statements, how to understand them, why they're important, and then often how to work with someone who knows them better and knows them deeper. So that, because if I'm not going to be the accountant, I don't need to go very deep. I just need to understand what's important and how to hire and work with an accountant. So as far as reinventing yourself, I think it's a matter of understanding that the promise that our public education system gives, which is heads down, study hard, get good grades, work on the test, is not true in our world. I'm already seeing, if you look at Seth, if you look at Fred Wilson hiring people to work at Union Square Ventures. Fred is one of the top venture capitalists in the country, one of the most famous, certainly, in the country and in New York.
In the world, actually. I would say.
In the world, absolutely. They don't hire people based on their GPA, on their application. I should highlight it. They basically say, do not send us your resume. We don't care where you went to college. We don't care what your GPA is. You know what they do? They say what we're doing right here, a video. They say, answer these 3 questions and send them to us via a video. That's how you get to the next round, because I really believe that resumes are dying, but not quickly enough. And I believe that an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper is about the worst way to represent the depth of a human. I think we're moving towards a world where it's going to be showing up. Who are you? What have you done? How well do you, speak on video? That kind of thing. And our school system is not preparing people for that.
Right. I totally agree. And my life is I consider I would say an example of what you're saying, of how careers advance nowadays is totally different from that paradigm. And what would you say is the way to resume? I love that quote. Resumes are dying, but not fast enough. And how would you say we can accelerate this process? Because it seems to me that people can kind of see something happening, but maybe because there's not clear model, like you and Seth were talking about, because there may not be that clear other safe thing that I can jump to do. People are sort of like holding on to this thing that's dying. So what would you say are the things that we can do to accelerate this shift of paradigms, this more people are embracing the new ways to grow professionally?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of simple things people can do. One is buyyourdomainname.com. So carlosmaselli.com, clayhebert.com.
Right.
It seems obvious to you and me, but I was at a conference last week, and one of the speakers was one of the best public speakers I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot. It was a fairly small venue. It was about 80 people, and everyone was just locked on this guy. He was amazing, theatrical, inspirational. His message was awesome. His message was amazing. His website was his first name, last name.com. And in his talk, he talked a lot about his kids and how he strives for excellence in his life, and they're going to strive for excellence, and how important it is to them, and he doesn't tolerate mediocrity and all those things. And it was pretty clear that his kids are going to grow up to be pushed to be pretty amazing people. And so afterwards I went up to him and I said, I can't pay you enough for what you just told me with this talk, but the one piece of advice, I looked at the end of your talk on the break and all of your kids' names, their first name and your last name.com is available. It's just sitting out there. It's not taken. And so you know that people Google your name to find you for speaking gigs and consulting and things like that. Someday people are going to Google his kids to hire them for whatever they're going to do. And the beauty of owning your domain name is it's this sort of blank etch-a-sketch for your life, where if you're 12 years old and you want to get into photography for a few months and take Instagram photos or just play around with the camera, and you're a photographer online and you can throw up a Squarespace site or a WordPress site, that's wonderful. But then if, as 12-year-olds are apt to do, change their mind, and maybe when you're 14 you want to be a writer, and when you're 16 you want to be a race car driver or something else, you can just delete what's there, shake the Etch-a-Sketch, and put up a new website, and you completely reinvent this entire new identity of yourself that a resume doesn't do. If you think about doing that in a resume world, it means deleting a bullet or a paragraph as opposed to the richness of a website and video and interactions like we're having now. And so the one little nugget that I give to people, sometimes when I come across, super rich, super wealthy, super famous, whatever people where, I can't give them anything in the way of, connections or anything. I give them some advice that says, your kids are never going to have a resume. So go, the best $15 that you can spend this year is to buy their domain name.
That is, so true though. Like a website, if look at your website, my website, they've changed in so many ways, and they're probably a much more accurate description of who we are than a resume will ever be, because a resume is this whatever I put in. Well, I haven't sent a resume in the last 8 years, but the last whatever I put in my resume that says I did when I was 19, that's in no way what you're hiring. I don't know what it is, but I'm definitely not that. And
the flip side is true as well. The job descriptions is just a bad version of representing what you're going to do. For 3 to 5 years, what you're going to do is represented by basically the opposite of a resume as a job description. Successfully implement blah, blah, blah system. Doesn't correlate at all. So we wonder why we're unhappy and don't have any satisfaction at work, is because we're trying to match resumes with job descriptions. It's the most broken thing in the world.
I agree with that. Like I wrote an article in Spanish once about how if you try to think of the process of coming up with a job description, the amount of assumptions we're making. First, that you're assuming that the person knows exactly what his problem is. You're assuming that they know how to communicate it. You're assuming that the right people will actually read whatever you put in paper. You're assuming they're going to be interested. Like, there's so many steps where it can be broken, where this thing's not going to work, that by the time you bring someone on the door that also is bringing a resume, like you're saying, it's a total mayhem. Like, there's no way that's going to work. But we still do that, and I guess the only thing we can do is lead by example and show that results are coming to the people that are adapting to new ways of showing credentialing and showing expertise and showing results, right? Yeah.
In the economy, we know if you ask someone, well, they're going to try to become this or they're going to try to get a job. If you just ask anyone, what is the recruiter or what is the person going to do when that person applies for that job, or if someone applies to be in your program or whatever, what is that person going to do? And you can ask anyone, even if they're not very tech savvy, and they'll get the answer correct, which is, well, they're probably going to Google their name. But they don't realize the next step is, by owning your own domain name, you show up number one and you get to control, the old PR term about controlling the message. But if somebody Googles your name, you want to be the first website that comes up and have your website be whatever you want it to be. That simple little thing is something I see most people not even doing, and I think it's for the cost of a Starbucks cup of coffee or 2 or 3 for a whole year. It's the right way to do it.
Yeah. One more thing that I thought I think you said on the way you develop your career, I think was really interesting is, It seems to me that one thing that people are missing is sort of a meaningful part. Like, a lot of people have tactical things to do. Well, I can maybe I can launch a website, or I can send resumes, or I can go to some event to network, or whatever. But there doesn't seem to be this sort of a purposeful goal, and it seems that you made this reinvention of your career when you were able to marry both things. You were able to combine knowing what to do, what things work to accomplish certain goals, but combine it with there's a thing that makes you want to get up every day,
Right.
and it seems that for a lot of careers they may have the first part, but they miss the latter. And how do you encourage people? How do you suggest people start trying to find that other part, so they can look at what new careers they can be getting into?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think another thing that we tend to think about wrong is we tend to think about jobs in the sense of what industry do I want to be in. Um, there are people who love music and they would do anything they think to work in the music industry. And so I say, well, okay, would you like to be a janitor at Tower Records? Well, he said, of course not. Well, like your paycheck says Tower Records, you're employed by the music industry or EMI or whoever. And they said, well, that's not what I meant. So the point of that sort of drastic example is to get them to think through what your day actually looks like. So what I tell people is forget what industries you're interested in for a second. Write down what a typical perfect or really great day, week, and month looks like in your dream career. Not saying sitting on the beach forever. That actually gets very boring very quickly. But if you had a job, forget the industry, forget the company, because in this world of resumes and job descriptions, we get too hung up on, oh, I want to go work at Dropbox. Well, maybe you do, but what does your day or week or month look like? And what I realized is I didn't want to go to somebody else's building and make spreadsheets and do all that stuff. I was hung up on the brand name of Accenture and its Big Four consulting, and some people live their entire lives just to work there. And what I wanted was I wanted to be able to maximize the leverage of my experience and be able to help the most people and be able to teach and help entrepreneurs at a fair price to them that still allows me to make enough money to pay my bills. And so that's where I ended up landing, because I sort of architected that path. But it's a worthwhile exercise. Get out a calendar or just do it in Google Calendar, anything, white sheet of paper, and say, close your eyes, wipe out everything away. Maybe do it after meditating, and say, if today was my perfect day, assuming that I do have a job, assuming that I am working, what would I do? Would I wake up and meditate? Would I swing some kettlebells? Would I make coffee? And then do I have client calls? Am I on the road all the time? Right? Tom Peters does 3 speeches a week all over the world, and he's just always on a plane. That's perfect for Tom. It's not perfect for some people, right? Some people only want to travel so much. And it's possible, knowing what we know, to craft this, what your day, week, month looks like, and then create or design a job or set of jobs or freelance career that meets those needs, because that's way more important. That, and then being successful. Seth always talks about it's much better to be you'll be happier running a successful startup that you sort of love than a very unprofitable or unsuccessful startup that you really love the industry of, right? Like success breeds happiness in general. We're not talking about digging ditches here, right? So I would challenge everyone to get out that calendar, get out that sheet of paper, and say, if today was my perfect work day, work week, work month, what would I do? How much would I travel? What kind of meetings would I call? Would I be doing this is part of what I consider to be my perfect work week or month, is doing the occasional video interview with smart people like you who are doing their own thing to change the world. This fits perfectly into that for me, and I think people don't craft that for themselves.
No, I agree. The making basically being clear on the difference between knowing about something and the idea we have about something and actually doing it. And
Right.
I think that's a great call to action. I want to talk about crowdfunding, because this is like your the thing you're in now. And well, you're making incredible progress, and a lot of people are asking you for your help. Why this explosion? Why this explosion of crowdfunding? Is it just tools that came up, or do you see a deeper mindset shift in people and the way businesses are done? What is your diagnosis of the scenario?
Yeah, so I want to tell you a story. So a few years ago, this guy named Joe wanted to raise money for this big project that he was doing, and he tried to do it via crowdfunding. He sent the word out, and he was hoping to raise $100,000. So, a good chunk of money, and he didn't get a whole lot of response. He raised about $837. And so over the next couple of years, he built up his platform and he built up his reach, and he made his offerings better. And then he relaunched a crowdfunding campaign, and he finally did raise over $100,000. So the guy's name was Joseph Pulitzer, and the project that he was doing was raising money for the base of the Statue of Liberty. So this wasn't a couple years ago, this was a long time ago. And the crowdfunding campaign was not on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, it was via his newspaper. So when he launched the first time, his newspaper didn't have much circulation, and the offer he made, please send us money, was not a very good offer. But when he redid it the second time, he had grown the newspaper reached a lot more people, and his offer and his pricing was better. And he said, anyone who sends in even a penny, we will put your name in the newspaper. So he had kids who only had a penny to their name, who live in, the farms in Nebraska, sending in their penny to the newspaper so they could see their name in the newspaper. And he raised the $100,000 because the French basically had the Statue of Liberty ready to go, right, and we didn't have the base to put it on. So they said, come on, guys, really, it's been a few years now. So that was kind of the original, one of the first ever, projects that was crowdfunded. But obviously that was sort of rare and it was a long time ago. Now these tools and the internet, which connects us all, it's a lot of what Seth talks about, where everything is fragmented. The book We Are All Weird, there's all these little pockets of people, and he talks about tribes, like big tribes, but sometimes it's small tribes or sub-tribes or micro tribes of just 500 or 1,000 people. There's a really great blog post called 1,000 True Fans by Kevin Kelly. If anyone hasn't read it, pause this interview and go read that and come back.
Very good post.
All you need is 1,000 people. All you need to make Exosphere a super success is 1,000 people who think it's the best thing in the world. All you need to be successful. And crowdfunding is the perfect platform to find, to organize your 1,000 people to support your idea. You need to find them ahead of time. You need to build up your platform like Pulitzer built up the newspaper. You need to build a landing page to get pre-launch opt-in emails to say, hey, this is my project. It's launching in 6 months. If you're interested, let me know, give your email and we'll let you know when it's live. Those kinds of things. But people see it as, and I love the fact that the numbers are big and it's $5 billion and it's tripled over 3 years or whatever. But more importantly is these little micro entrepreneurs with an idea. The gatekeepers are losing their power and they're slowly going away. And anyone can choose themselves, and crowdfunding is a really great way to choose yourself. So anytime you hear a no from someone when you're trying to do your dream, if you were trying to create Exosphere and someone said, no, Carlos, I'm not going to give you the money to start that, you could go on crowdfunding and get the money from the people that care, the me and the Andy Elwood and right? You don't need the gatekeepers anymore. And the gatekeepers are often wrong anyway. The book series, The Chronicles of Narnia, was rejected 800 times. So I think it's time for us to stop glorifying and giving the gatekeepers all this power. But even 5 or 10 years ago, we didn't have many other options. If Simon & Schuster, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, if no big publisher wanted to publish your book, it was really hard to, you could make a PDF, but you couldn't even really put it online 20 years ago, right? You could type it up and hand it to people. So that distribution isn't going to allow the idea to spread. But now there's a guy named Hugh Howey who just started publishing via Amazon CreateSpace, and he got millions of readers, literally millions of people loved his stuff. And he got the first ever deal with a major publisher where he got to keep the digital rights and they only get the print rights. They didn't like that very much, but that's a signal to, if you pick yourself, the gatekeepers, not only do you gain power over them in the negotiation, if you even want to negotiate with them at all, but you don't even need them. At some point, Hugh Howey, so the publisher said, well, we don't want to really give you that kind of deal. We wouldn't even give that deal to Stephen King. And Hugh Howey closed his briefcase and he said, okay, thanks, and he just walked out of the office because he didn't need them. They needed him because he had already built his tribe and he had already found 1 million readers. And so other publishers would have been happy to publish him. So it's not just an either or. It's not mutually exclusive. If you pick yourself, now you have 2 options. You can stay with yourself or you can go with the gatekeeper. But if you go with the gatekeeper, it's going to be on your terms. So another example is Eric Mijakovsky, who made the Pebble Watch. He took that to every VC in the valley, and they all said, "That's crazy. Nobody wants a smartwatch. Get out of here." And he heard no, and the company was on its last legs.
This
And
is
then
the
he
most
went,
successful crowdfunding campaign so far,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
$10 million on Kickstarter, like more than he had ever dreamed or ever thought of. Those same venture capitalists who told him no were crawling back, calling him up, and saying, "Yeah, you remember when we said get out of my office last week? We would actually change our mind. We'd really like to be in,"
Right.
because they were wrong, and he picked himself and he proved himself. So who do you think got better terms in that deal, Eric or the VC?
Right.
So that is available to everyone. I'm working on a book this year that's going to hopefully come out next year about the end, not the end, but the changing role of gatekeepers and how crowdfunding is accelerating that.
That it's fascinating because there's some things that, like the way you're putting it, there's some things that were always there. People helping, people getting together to help someone accomplish something that they all care about. That was always there, because of the way you put your example of the Statue of Liberty. But then there seems that the interesting thing is there are some new things, and that's what people should be paying attention to, right? They should be paying attention to the fragmentation of communities and how pretty much whatever you come up with, there's going to be enough people there for you to help you if you communicate it clearly and you have something that's valuable. And I love this idea. I love this idea of the gatekeeper losing power, not just because of this allowing more people to try something, but also because it seems to me that, and I want to know what your thoughts are on this, but it seems to me that in the entrepreneurial world, we are hopefully getting out a bit of this notion that the way to start something is to ask somebody that's not my customer for a lot of money. And I like the idea that crowdfunding kind of bridges back the creator with the customer. And that means this has to actually make someone better and make someone's life better. And there's been a lot of things that have gotten money and didn't make anyone's life better. So I think not only crowdfunding seems to be interesting in terms of creating a lot more entrepreneurs and small entrepreneurs, big entrepreneurs, getting support to try their things, but also bringing us back to creating things that only people find valuable. Do you kind of see this trend? Where would you say there's room for improvement in this, in people getting even closer to what their potential customers will want when they crowdfund?
Yeah, I think valuable is in the eye of the beholder and the customer, right? Like, my girlfriend buys things that I don't think are valuable to me, but they're certainly valuable to her. And what crowdfunding allows you to do is find the 500 or 1,000 people that think what you're making is valuable. Like, you travel quite a bit. Somebody just made I was helping this guy, plastic passport holder because his passport got beat up and Germany wouldn't let him in. Other countries said it was fine, but Germany said your passport is too beat up, you can't come in, and it ruined his whole vacation and trip and everything. So he's creating a blue plastic passport holder. If you don't travel, that's not very interesting to you. But for the people that are on the road who maybe they look at their passport and it's a little worn out, that's a really interesting thing for them. So to me, value is in the eye of the beholder, and what the internet and crowdfunding allows us to do is find the 500 people who care, and that's all you need. That's the 1,000 true fans. That's all you need. We've been brainwashed by media and by sort of ad sales and things like that. Like, the way for Exosphere to grow is to buy a Super Bowl ad. Well, they could give you 3 Super Bowl ads, and Exosphere wouldn't grow as much as if you found the right 500 or 1,000 people through the connections and networks that you are using. So when expensive media like that doesn't translate to what you're trying to achieve, your opportunities are sort of endless when it comes to like crowdfunding or just building permission. But the flip side of that is, people think that crowdfunding is free money, or that somehow these platforms are going to find your tribes or sub-tribes for you. And I see so many crowdfunding projects fail because other people executed it correctly, and so they think that the magic was posting it on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, and there's all these magical people who want a passport holder waiting for your new product. Of course not. You have to talk to the travel bloggers and talk to the other people to see if this is a fit. So it's a double-edged sword, because crowdfunding is the ultimate tool for smart marketers but most people are not yet smart marketers. I think crowdfunding is going to help all of us understand marketing better, and I'm hoping my course can help with that. But it's got all the elements of good marketing. If you think about all the stuff that you and I talk about with good marketing, a headline, right? Storytelling via the video, pricing, scarcity, urgency, right? All of those things are wrapped into one beautiful page that consumers don't even need to have seen before, and they basically know how to use. If you offer a special access to something with Exosphere and there's only 5 available, people understand what that means. You don't need to. The great thing about one great thing about crowdfunding is the people understand how the platform works, even if it's the first or second time they've seen it. And it's this playground for smart marketers to turn all these dials about pricing and scarcity. And oh, there's Kickstarter exclusive color green, and there's an early bird special or a super early bird special. And then being able to tell a video, like a story via video. So big brands spend billions of dollars trying to get you and me to watch a 30-second ad on commercials, or 8 seconds of pre-roll on YouTube, or a 15-second ad on Hulu. If you can get someone to click to your crowdfunding campaign and your video is good and compelling, they will sit there for 2 minutes. And that is worth so much money. If you can tell a story in 2 minutes, like Jake Bronstein does around the 10-year hoodie, when you click play on Jake's video, you don't even know that you hate these fast fashion disposable brands like Zara and H&M, and by the time you're done with his video, you want to join his movement. And the cost to join his movement is to give him $80 and you get this indestructible, awesome, comfortable hooded sweatshirt. Because he told that story, he raised over $1 million selling one hooded sweatshirt for $80. The reason nobody else can raise $1 million selling one hooded sweatshirt is they're not as good at telling a story as Jake is. That's the main difference.
Right. Oh, fantastic. And so let's round it up with one message, because it seems that what crowdfunding then is doing, it's not making doing business easier. Doing business and getting customers will always be a challenge, because you need to go to, see what people think, see where they are, get their attention, show them what the value, be able to communicate it better. What is it that crowdfunding would you say is doing for business then? When there is it maybe making it simpler? Is it maybe making it more pure, or is it maybe making it more accessible for everybody? And if that's the case, where would someone start to learn how to be good in crowdfunding if they have an idea?
Sure. So what crowdfunding is doing is it's taking the gatekeepers out at their knees. It's crushing the power that these gatekeepers have to say no to your creative project, to your film, to your book. If you have an idea and anyone tells you no, I really hope that you don't launch the crowdfunding campaign first, build the tribe first, find the people that are interested, find your first 10 true fans, and then 50, and then 100. You didn't start with 1,000, you started with 1. Maybe your mom, maybe my mom. Like, you got to find 5 people who love your project, and then 10, and then 50, and then 100. But the gatekeepers don't get to be part of that conversation, and they don't even want to be. They just want to sit back and tell you no and place their bets on the horses that they think are going to win. And if you look at any gatekeeper, they don't really have an exceptional track record. There's no VCs out there who 80% of the startups they pick are successful. There's no book publishers out there who 80% of the books they publish are New York Times bestsellers. So they're not that accurate either. So just pick yourself, find your tribe. Crowdfunding just gives you a place to assemble the tribe. It's like renting a venue for a cocktail party. You're renting a space on the internet to bring everybody to have this little party, donate some money, get some prizes, and get your dream off the ground. As far as how to do it, there's tons of great articles on the internet all over the place. That's why I'm building, my course at crowdfundinghacks.com, which is crowdfunding in a box. It's everything I've learned from helping 50 entrepreneurs raise over $5 million on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. And what's even more interesting to me and what's coming down the pike soon is this concept of equity-based crowdfunding. Rewards-based crowdfunding, you give Jake Bronstein $80, he gives you a hooded sweatshirt. Or you give somebody $20, they give you the digital download of their film plus the DVD. equity-based crowdfunding, somebody gives you $10,000 and they own 0.1% of Exosphere, the company. And so that isn't finalized yet, but a lot of the details are finalized. It's not quite live, but it's coming soon. And that's a real game changer, because for real startups who want to build and don't want to give away, prizes or swag or rewards, they want to give away 10% or 20% of their company, they'll be able to do that without involving necessarily angel investors or VCs.
Right. Well, I love that, and I love that. What really stands out to me is that crowdfunding connection brings you to the people again, brings you to connection with the person, forces you to connect with the people that actually love what you do and love what you have to offer. And I think that's a really good paradigm shift for all wannabe entrepreneurs trying to do something positive. Clay, I want to thank you a lot for your time and for telling us, explaining all this to us. It's fascinating, and I hope we can do another one very soon.
Yeah, sounds great, Carlos. Thanks for all the work that you do. You're doing great stuff.
Thanks, man. Thank you so much. We'll talk again soon.